Hi, it's Cayman with S&B, and today we're going to be installing our 60-gallon replacement fuel tank on this 2009 Ford F250 crew cab short bed. So we have tanks that fit the year ranges 99 all the way to 2010 for the crew cab short beds. This tank is the part number 10-1028, and it fits on your 6.4 liter trucks. And we also have our 10-1011, and that fits on our 99 to 2007 trucks. But the installation is the same, and follow along. If you already bought the tank, go ahead and take out the install card, scan the QR code with your smartphone camera, and it'll take you to our most up-to-date installation instructions. Installation can be done on the ground, but since we have a lift, we will be installing this tank with our 4-post lift today. Before we can get into it, just wanted to show you what a bad body mount looks like. If this customer definitely needs our silicone body mounts, you can see they're just falling apart. And if you don't have them and your body mounts look like that, make sure to check out our website. Now with the 5/16 nut driver, we're going to remove the hose clamp on the vent right here, as well as the filler. And we're going to pull off the rubber hose from the metal filler neck. Since it's an older truck, it might be a little bit harder to remove and a little baked on. So we'll go around with the flathead screwdriver to loosen up the hose. And as you'll probably find, these fillers are really hard to get off. They just are baked on there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the next few steps where I'm basically removing all the connections to the fuel tank. Then when it's just this holding the fuel tank up, I'm gonna use the weight of the fuel tank and use some force from the driveline side to pull these off. And so some trucks will have this plate in front of the fuel tank. We are gonna use a 15 mil socket to remove this plate. This will not be reused. Now, if you're doing this on the ground or on a lift, make sure you have something underneath the tank to support the tank while we're removing the front strap, rear strap, dropping the tank a little bit to get access to the feed, return, as well as the electrical connector on top of the tank. And also don't put the jack right underneath the center unit. So find where the fuel pump is, which looks like it's right here. And don't put the jack right underneath. The center units in here are on a steel rod. And so putting pressure under there could potentially break off that rod or damage the center unit. So the first bolt is right here outside the frame rail for the front strap. Again with the 15 millimeter socket. Now the driveline slide bolt is right here. Now we're gonna do the rear strap. This bolt's right here. On the 6.0s and 7.3s, I have seen it inside of the leaf spring perch right here, more forward of the vehicle. So just look for this rear strap and find this bolt. Now we're gonna do the driveline side bolt here on the rear strap. Now we're gonna carefully drop the tank about 4 to 6 inches until we can get some space up here to remove these lines. So there's an electrical, which you can probably see right there, then there's the feed and the return. Now first we're gonna be removing the electrical. The electrical has a little button right here. So I'm gonna pinch that button and pull out. Then after that, here's this connector. Pinch the two sides. So you're going to pinch the two sides and pull. Just might need a little bit of wiggling and some force. And the last thing to do is to remove this rollover hose off the front and the rear of the tank. You can see the rubber on this was already basically disintegrated. Now the tank is free to drop. Now we're going to work on transferring over the center unit as well as the vent and the filler hose over to the S&B tank. First we're going to do this, then we're going to perform a pressure test. So this comes off counterclockwise. If it's on really tight, you might need to use a dead blow and a pry bar to hit this counterclockwise, but this is coming off by hand. Then also notate where these fittings are pointed. So you can see this is basically perpendicular with the tank, the larger one. Then also something important to check is to make sure that this is the pickup tube is still intact. A lot of the times these will break off and you'll experience quarter tank issues if this rubber or this plastic is broken off. And be careful also of the float when removing it from the stock tank. We will be removing the O-ring. Then we'll be placing in the included black S&B O-ring into the tank. Now before putting in the sending unit into the S&B tank, we're going to take these tabs that are underneath the sending unit and just move them away from the sealing flange right here. If you have needle nose pliers, that would also probably even be better than the way I'm doing it. This is how it looks with those tabs pulled away. Now we'll clean this surface and place it into the S&B tank. And use the retaining nut from the stock tank. And we'll get this going clockwise. Make sure this stays perpendicular to the tank. Now we're going to be performing a pressure test on the tank. We'll be taking some soapy water, spraying the area where the O-ring is, making a hole in the included cap. Take the compressed air. Now we'll be pressurizing the tank with these two ports as well as the rear vent plugs. And again, we're going to be pressurizing the tank just where we see the walls start to slightly expand, just enough to where if there was a leak around the O-ring or somewhere else in the tank, we would hear a hissing noise. So you can check around the tank, check around the O-ring, make sure you don't see any pinholes or hear any noises, and the pressure test looks good. Full release. Now we're going to look and see how the OEM fill and vent lines are and how they're pointing, and we're going to be transferring these over to the S&B tank. So first the filler, and again with the 5/16 nut driver, loosen up the filler hose. Then we'll be placing in the included S&B inlet check valve with the flow arrow going into the tank, so away from the hose. We'll get that started, then we're going to use the barb on our tank to push it all the way through so we don't damage the flapper in there. We'll get this nice and tight. Now before the tank goes in, we can also zip tie our rollover valve hose, this black one, to the vent. We want this to be angled up after the tank is installed. Now that everything's on the S&B tank, the S&B tank's ready to go in place, we're going to be transferring over this slip nut from the OEM front strap onto the S&B front strap. And we will slide this onto the S&B front strap. Now while we're putting the S&B tank into place, first step is going to be putting this rollover valve hose over the frame before this cross member, because this cross member is going to sit right here. Then also when we're lifting the tank, making sure these get over the frame rail. You don't want these to get stuck inside the frame rail. It's going to cause a lot more work. Now we'll get this tank jacked up into place. Now we're going to reach up and over the tank and reconnect those feed, return, as well as the electrical lines. Then after that, we're going to work on the straps as well as the filler and the vent hose. So if your feed line going from the rail to the sending unit is too short, some 6.4s do have these that are too short. You'll want to install our extension line. So this goes from a 1/2 inch quick connect male to a 1/2 inch quick connect female connector. So we're going to get this started on the factory line. Then it's going to loop around. Then it's going to connect right into that existing connector on top of the sending unit. So it'll basically look like this when assembled. A nice smooth bend, and we'll check to make sure there's no kinks and it is free once we have it installed. Now that we have the, we got the return as well as the electrical connector on the top of the sending unit, we are going to wait to do the straps to bring the tank over closer to the frame before we get the feed line. So the feed line is the larger line. And if the feed line, after you put the straps on, if you still can't get the feed line, you might need to use our extension fuel line that we provide. So it depends on the truck. Some trucks don't need them. I know on the 7.3s and the 6.0s, there's plenty of slack in the line, and some 6.4s might need the extension line. But you can go ahead and put the straps in to see if this hugs the tank up closer towards the frame, so you can get that feed line on. So to do this strap, again, just find that slip nut right there on the frame. Get that started by hand. And then the driveline side, you can get this one started by hand as well. Now for the front strap, first we're going to make sure that this slip nut is aligned. We're going to get that side of the strap in between the cross member and the tank. And also you can use a smartphone, use a flashlight, or just try to find that hole that's in the strap. Now we're going to be putting the rubber filler back into the metal filler. So there is quite a bit of overlap between the metal and the rubber. So I'll just kind of pry on it to get it going. Then again for the vent as well. We'll put the hose clamps back in place. And now we'll bring this roller valve from the front of the tank, bring it behind this body mount and up to the filler as well. And we'll take our hose clamp, not our hose clamp, our zip tie, and we'll zip tie these two vents together. After that, the installation's complete. You can transfer fuel from your original tank to your new S&B tank, and you can be off and running. If you are going to use the S&B tank with an aftermarket lift pump like a Fast or an Air Dog, you will want to get the S&B included bung for the bottom. It's a 1/2 inch MPT with a gasket that goes to a -8 or -10 AN fitting. That -8 or 10 AN fitting works great with a 90-degree push-on barb, so you can get a 5/8 inch line or a 1/2 inch line. And let us know if you have any questions. Our number is 909-675-1313. Thanks for watching.